After making a grave error in 2003, Ben called off the first Bennifer wedding, and J.Lo thought she was going to pass away. Ben, who didn't learn from his first error, called off the marriage 19 years later, leaving J.Lo completely heartsick and devastated. Despite only having been married to J.Lo for 2 years, Ben Affleck feels as though he has been imprisoned for 20 years. Ben and other reliable sources have stated that the incarceration began on the day of their wedding. Almost immediately, what was meant to be a honeymoon became a bitter moon. The problem is, he recognized the warning signs from the beginning, but disregarded it, believing, as J.Lo once stated, that love doesn't cost a thing. He now understands better because he is presently paying $100,000 per month to live in a rented apartment while his jointly owned $60 million mansion is already listed for sale at a huge loss. Ben is finally done and tired of putting up with all the humiliation, toxic control, nasty temper, and diva attitudes he's been putting up with for the last 2 years, especially after the last J.Lo tantrum and transfer of aggression that sent him packing. However, people close to J.Lo claim that she is still begging him, refusing to let go. This supports the remarks made by fans stating that J.Lo couldn't stand to be single even for a day. Fans could tell from the beginning that Ben and his wife weren't going to make it in this marriage, judging by the look on his face. The real reasons Ben gave up on J.Lo were their clashing personalities, the strange rules she made him follow, and her toxic control over every part of his life. We'll look at the main causes of Ben's eventual give up on his marriage to J.Lo in this video. We'll let you in on the best-kept secrets about why Ben eventually gave up on attempting to save his marriage to J.Lo. Among these are the fact that J.Lo has been toxically controlling every part of his life, including how many times they are supposed to have sex each week. Yes, it sounds ludicrously unbelievable, but Ben had been abiding by this rule prior to being granted freedom. The best news, though, is saved for last because we'll share a startling revelation from reliable sources that appears to be the final act of J.Lo that ultimately caused Ben to leave. We'll also throw in the bonus that Ben was completely outmatched by the more seasoned J.Lo from the moment they first met in 2002. Let's take a closer look at how Ben and J.Lo met and how he ended up in this expensive mess before we get into the juicy details. Ben and J.Lo became known as Bennifer as soon as they started dating in 2002. When they first met on the set of the film Giggly, the issue, though, was that J.Lo at the time was already wed to Chris Judd. In July 2002, J.Lo filed for divorce from him in order to get him out of the way. She had already proposed to Ben in November of that year and was getting married. Do you not think that's a little off? You could say that she essentially left her husband behind in order to wed Ben. She didn't just do that once, either. When they got back in touch, she acted in the exact same way. But only a few days before the big day, the wedding was called off. The official narrative was that the overwhelming amount of media coverage that the wedding was receiving forced them to call off the event. Yes, to a certain extent, but they withheld information for another, more significant reason. In 2003, Ben canceled the first Bennett wedding for 2 reasons. The first was the explanation that was made public, despite the fact that J.Lo was desperately hoping for and desiring the excessive media attention his love life was receiving. He couldn't handle it. Ben realized a few days before the wedding that the marriage would not last, and that was the second reason best kept under wraps. Ben learned that J.Lo alone was in charge of all the wedding arrangements after becoming engaged in November of the prior year and beginning the process of getting married. All he was doing was backing off. Additionally, he had a few complaints about the preparation. But J.Lo always had a way of brushing off his worries whenever he voiced them. Ben was particularly uncomfortable with the media circus surrounding the wedding, which he had hoped would be a small, private ceremony. He voiced this concern, and J.Lo responded in her typical J.Lo manner. By hiring 3 fictitious brides for 3 separate wedding venues, she solved the problem. Ben had to call it off when he realized she wasn't being sincere about trying to avoid the media circus surrounding their impending nuptials, leaving J.Lo with the impression that she was going to die, as she disclosed more than 10 years later in an interview. However, Ben was doomed from the start. More significantly, he failed to learn his lesson. Given that Bennifer 2.0 began in 2021 when he reconnected with J.Lo, it is likely that he brought it upon himself. Similar to the previous instance, Bennifer 2.0 had begun to disintegrate right away in their relationship. And just like the first time, J.Lo jumped ship to launch Bennifer 2.0 while she was deeply involved in another relationship. Ben had been single for 3 years when he finalized his divorce from Jennifer Garner in 2018. Conversely, J.Lo was engaged to Alex Rodriguez and scheduled to wed him. J.Lo began dating Ben in the same month that she called off her engagement to Alex. After a year, Ben made the best choice possible when he decided to get married. Sources close to the couple claim that Jennifer 2.0 had her fair share of bumpy rides beginning on the first day of their honeymoon. Ben believed that J.Lo had changed and that this would be different. But before he knew that this J.Lo was the same J.Lo from 20 years ago, it was too late. According to sources, Ben was contemplating the classic tale of living happily ever after with J.Lo. This explains why he saw the obvious warning signs but decided to ignore them. The controlling nature of J.Lo was the initial point of contention between the newlyweds. J.Lo is a control freak who enjoys having everything, even her spouse, under her thumb. And that's precisely what Ben detests. He is the laid-back type of guy who prefers to take things slowly and let them unfold naturally. Aside from her contradictory nature, J.Lo's constant need to be in charge of every part of Ben's life was something he detested. This covers his preferred pastime, friends he chooses, and his drinking and smoking patterns. Ben is the type of guy who finds it difficult to avoid drinking. In actuality, his alcoholism played a major role in the breakdown of his marriage to Jennifer Garner. Ben, who had been drinking since he was 15, found J.Lo's strict alcohol-free policy to be equivalent to being imprisoned. J.Lo was so adamant about this rule that she even made him check his drink for alcohol while she was out in public. Can you force an alcoholic to change unless he is ready to change? Is a question that fans have been raising, though with all of J.Lo's stringent regulations, one fan who has personal experience with alcoholism correctly foresaw what would happen. As a recovering alcoholic myself, I feel so bad for Ben, the fan commented. If he is sober right now, if she doesn't back off, he might not be in the near future. She is unable to behave like his parent. J.Lo also attempted to influence Ben's friend selection as another area of his life. J.Lo wished to alter Ben's friend group since she didn't like some of them. Actor Matt Damon and NFL player Tom Brady were among them. She detested Tom Brady in particular because she believed that he might encourage him to consider divorcing her, just as Brady had done with Gisele Bündchen after their 13-year marriage ended. Ben was making a strong statement when he went to his friend's event, considering the events of the past, but he was too busy to go with his wife to the Met Gala, where she is co-chair, just 24 hours after the Tom Brady roast. Ben was genuinely expressing that he places a higher value on friendship and friends than he does on his toxic wife, who attempted to turn him against them. It's said that Ben is looking to Matt Damon for support now that J.Lo is no longer in his life. J.Lo was successful in managing Ben's pastime, but failed to exert control over his close friends. Ben had a passion for riding long before he met J.Lo. He also owned a sizable collection of expensive motorcycles. However, following his marriage to J.Lo, J.Lo began to complain that Ben should give up riding since it's a risky and reckless pastime. Ben was obviously not prepared to give up on something he has always loved just because the woman he married last month didn't think it was safe. However, J.Lo had other ideas because Ben wasn't prepared to give in. Ben was unaware that she had sold all of his valuable motorcycles to a dealer while they were on vacation. Ben would most likely never be able to forgive her for that. That's not all, though. In addition to missing out on his favorite alcoholic beverages, Ben also missed having junk food as a snack because J.Lo forbade it. For his benefit, she installed a gym in their home, hired a nutritionist and a personal trainer, and made sure he only ever ate healthy foods. All she wanted was for everything about him to be altered to suit her preferences. Ben believes J.Lo has a hard time feeling satisfied with every aspect of him because of this. Additionally, Ben's lack of personal hygiene is a concern. According to a source close to the couple, Jennifer gets very irritated with Ben because he doesn't tidy up after himself. Some people may not think much of cleaning up after themselves, especially when you have a large workforce, but J.Lo does. It irritates the hell out of her, and she wouldn't have it any other way because she is a perfectionist. Ben felt stifled by the marriage, and his resentment of J.Lo grew as a result of all these rules, conflicting personalities, and meddling in his life decisions. Fans could tell he was unhappy by his expression, so he didn't try to hide it. For this reason, one fan remarked, "I wonder what Ben will think about Sergeant J.Lo if he felt trapped with Garner." Another said, "Ben has been telling us with his expression that he's had enough all this time. It's clear that he felt more than just imprisoned by J.Lo, it was toxic." But Ben's decision to end things wasn't solely due to these unpleasant rules, it was also a result of the years-long humiliation he had to endure. Just think of how embarrassed Ben must have felt every time his wife looked into his drinks, in front of the cameras, looking for evidence of alcohol. This is the same man who, after having his filthy laundry exposed in front of photographers, can't handle the limelight. Imagine what J.Lo does when there is no camera present. Imagine how much she could embarrass Ben in public. We now know more about Ben's private life thanks to a reliable source. She's been known to yell at him and point her finger, the source disclosed. People are left wondering if she thinks he's the dog. JLo's diva demeanor is legendary, of course. She recently displayed her well-known diva demeanor at the Met Gala. Ben completely gave up on his marriage after JLo did that a few days prior to this event. You are already aware of JLo's This Is Me Now tour's dismal performance. The fact that she had to postpone her entire summer tour in North America due to the tour's extreme failure is no longer news. You probably didn't know, but the show cancellation and poor ticket sales had such a severe impact on her that close sources claim she's been reduced to a complete BTC ever since, and that's why she's falling apart. This proved to be the final straw that broke Ben's back. To grasp the meaning of this, visualize the typical JLo that everyone despises and gripes about on a daily basis. Imagine JLo's typical diva demeanor now laced with a healthy helping of resentment and transferred aggression from the total failure of her terribly unsuccessful tour. It was precisely what Ben had to contend with. Or more accurately, what he was no longer able to handle. That's why he gave up in the end. Since then, Ben has moved out of the $60 million Bel Air mansion they purchased last year and is paying $100,000 a month for a rented apartment in Brentwood. This apartment is conveniently located just 2 blocks from his ex-wife, Jennifer Garner, or is that intentional? In addition, JLo has been looking for a new home while attempting to quietly sell their current one. According to TMZ on Sunday, they have enlisted Santiago Arana of the agency as their realtor. The 43,000-square-foot home was jointly purchased by Ben and JLo in May 2023 for $60.85 million in cash. With the listing price of $65 million, the couple will lose a significant amount of money because they will still need to pay taxes and realtor fees, which will now be very costly due to the new state tax on expensive properties in California. But Ben doesn't seem to care about the money he will lose. His peace of mind is more essential to him. Ben was spotted visiting JLo at their mansion earlier this week in his black Mercedes, most likely to finalize the details of their convoluted separation. The 4-hour meeting lasted 4 hours. A close source who spoke to Entertainment Tonight clarifies the details of their convoluted divorce by stating, Ben and Jen don't want to get divorced and are saying they won't. But right now, their relationship is just not functioning. This begs the question, how will they do it? The reason they aren't divorcing yet is revealed in a recent report. Additionally, it appears that JLo is still holding out hope that Ben will change his mind about ending their marriage. According to recent reports from insiders, JLo is frantically attempting to persuade Ben to reverse his decision to end their marriage because she still believes they were meant to be together, even though he has since changed his mind. According to a close source, JLo is still pursuing Ben, which is one of the reasons she wears her ring. She isn't giving up on her marriage. She wants their marriage to succeed because she loves Ben. However, most fans are on the other side of the fence, believing that Ben wants to leave, which must be embarrassing for JLo. She ought to just move on and let it go, and we are in complete agreement. JLo needs to just let Ben go. Another user who concurs with Ben's decision suggests that JLo hasn't yet faced reality when they say, "If I were Ben, I'd be living in a different house too." She believes that life is a Disney princess film, and she should be fired, despite JLo's valiant efforts to keep her marriage intact. Ben Affleck has finally given up on it after nearly 2 years of being together. Before her bad ticket sales and tour cancellations made her a bigger and nastier diva than she had ever been, Ben had to put up with her toxic control, diva attitudes, and rigid rules, and Ben was at his breaking point. Now, he rents an apartment for $100,000 a month, 2 blocks from his ex-wife, and the two of them are attempting to quietly and swiftly sell their $60.85 million shared house at a steep loss. However, Ben is okay with this setback because his love for Jennifer 2.0 has already cost him nearly everything.